My name is Mads Jones. I am 24 years old, and this is gonna be the story about how I am transitioning gender during a pandemic and a lockdown. Okay, I'm just gonna start at the beginning. So when I realized when I realized what being transgender was, it was probably one of the hardest days of my life. I didn't know what it was before. I found the term transgender online somewhere. I can't remember exactly where I found it, but it probably was somewhere on Tumblr because I remember using Tumblr a lot. And at the time, I knew that I felt very upset a lot and depressed, but I didn't really realize that anything of it had to do with my gender identity. So realizing what being transgender was, seeing the definition of it was, upsetting, because I saw myself for the first time, which in a way was good, but I also realized that being transgender is very difficult. And also it was scary because I didn't know anyone who had been through it. So I'll talk about my school. I had a very gendered upbringing, I would say. I went to all girls schools throughout my life, and the first one especially was extremely feminine. We had to wear these summer dresses, which I absolutely hated. And in general, it was just a very kind of gendered world to be in, I suppose. It certainly felt that there were rules in place for boys and girls, and the boys and girls were different. So I knew that from a young age. I remember resenting boys a lot because I wanted to do what they did in terms of play, in terms of schoolwork and stuff like that. I don't know, I felt like I couldn't just because I was a girl. So that was hard, for sure. So moving on from my primary school, my secondary school was a bit better. They were quite liberal. However, it's still an all-girls school. I remember reading about being transgender online on places like Tumblr. Not sure where else, perhaps Reddit. I don't know if I was on Reddit at that time. And that was the only place I found that I could discover more about being transgender was online, because no one in my life that I knew of had anything to do with being trans or anything like that. So, that was hard, not being able to feel like I could tell anyone about what was going on. So I realized what the term transgender was, and then I went down a rabbit hole and I discovered YouTube. YouTube was where everything got real, because at that time there were people on YouTube who were talking about transitioning and talking about, hormones, and that was insane to me because I'd never seen a female to male gender transition, like physically. So that was extremely important for me. So basically, I went from not knowing anything about being transgender to knowing a lot about it and seeing people who are transitioning through YouTube videos in the space of about 20 minutes. And that is where everything changed for me, basically.